The latest on the ground, CNN's Sarah Seidner is live in Jerusalem. Sarah, what are we hearing about Hamas and this possible ceasefire? Is it going to take effect?
Well, we thought that they were going to give us some information in the last half an hour. We have not heard from Hamas, but they have maintained that they want to be able to bring more items and have basically to bring more items into Gaza. And as you just heard earlier from Mr. Baer, that is not likely to happen, though we know that Israel has said it will continue for another 24 hours in a ceasefire. We have not heard of any more rockets coming, but we do know the devastation is great in Gaza, and our Ian Lee has been seeing the scene there, has been talking to the residents there who are looking at vast swaths of Gaza that have been destroyed. Now more than 1,000 people, we're talking 1,049 from Gaza officials, who say that they have all died, and most of them are civilians.
Well, Sarah, the ceasefire is definitely over. Both sides are trading salvos. The areas we were at earlier today are once again the front lines. And when I was out there, one of the things that really struck me, the power of the weapons used, were these huge slabs of concrete that were folded over like a page in a book. Take a look at some of the other things we saw. When the clouds of war cleared, this is the devastation that was left behind. We have a child's mattress, we have clothes, we have pots and pans. This area completely destroyed, and it's not just this house. As you can see, there's other buildings down here that have been damaged and devastated, and we've seen some people come through here and try to pick at little things they can take back with them to their shelters. This crater just highlights the massive amount of firepower that's being used in this area. This hole has to be at least 10 meters deep, and if you look, there's slabs of concrete. It looks like a building was here, and what we're hearing is that this was likely the result of a 500-pound bomb. Neighborhood after neighborhood, house after house has been reduced to rubble like this, and really, without any permanent ceasefire, this sort of devastation is likely to continue. Sarah, when we were in the Shajaiya neighborhood, we were very close to the front lines, at one point about 100 meters from Israeli tanks, when all of a sudden out of the woodwork we hear, "We don't want to see a soul here." That was in Arabic, and we believe those were Gazan militants. So what would make a ceasefire work? Well, I talked to some Hamas officials, and they say the lifting of the siege, they believe, is on the Strip. They want goods and services to flow across the international boundaries. And they say unless that happens, the fighting will continue. Sarah?
I think Israel's been pretty clear that, that is not likely to happen, though. Have you heard anything from Hamas about what Israel has said, that it is going to have now a 24-hour ceasefire, and hoping that Hamas will sign on to that as well? Okay, so that was our Ian Lee. He was reporting from Gaza. In the beginning of his report, he did talk a bit about both sides trading rockets and Israel firing back. But we do know that for the past 12 hours, there has been no firing from Israel into Gaza. They have been quiet, and now they have added another 24 hours onto the ceasefire. We will wait and see what happens. We know that there have been at least 6 mortars that have come over into Israel's southern part of the country in the Eshkol Regional Council from Gaza, but it has been quiet since then over the last hour or so. Miguel?
Sarah, the mortars we have heard about, and oftentimes these ceasefires are a little sloppy and things do happen. The Israelis have already said they're committed to a 24-hour ceasefire now. Hamas has not responded. Israel will continue to do its work on the tunnels there. What is your sense of things? Will the Israelis just sort of assume that the ceasefire is on and wait to see if Hamas will respond, and then show the world that Hamas is the perpetrator and the aggressor here?
Well, it's certainly a strategy. What you're seeing Israel do is saying, look, we are still going to try to destroy the tunnels. That doesn't mean we're going to move further in, but we're going to do other things to try and destroy the tunnels that Israel says weapons are being brought into Gaza through. They also bring other things through those tunnels as well, to be clear. And what they've basically said is, you know, we're not going to be doing the airstrikes that have taken so many lives there. And so I think they're waiting to see what those in Hamas do. If you start seeing lots of rockets and mortars coming over the border, then you're going to see a response. And Israel has been very clear they're going to have a strong response. But I think what they're trying to do, what Israel is trying to do, is say, we're offering you this. Look, Hamas is going against it. They are the ones that are continuing this fight, and now we're going to try and finish it. Though we know that this flare-up, this kind of flare-up, these wars, they come every 2 to 3 years. There was one in 2008, Operation Cast Lead. There was one in 2012. I was here for that one on both sides of the border. And now we're seeing another one in 2014. As I have said before, this is a long conflict and usually fairly short flare-ups wars. But so many people have died so far. We've got 43 Israelis and 1,049 Palestinians, according to officials.
All right, Sarah Seidner for us in Jerusalem. Thank you very much. I want to bring in our experts to discuss this. Retired Lieutenant Colonel Rick Francona is a CNN military analyst, and Bob Baer is a former CIA operative and CNN national security analyst. Colonel, it's been nearly 3 hours since Israel authorized the ceasefire extension. No word from Hamas. What do you think is happening here?
I'm really kind of surprised that the Israelis are giving them 24 hours, because you have to assume that Hamas is going to be trying to resupply as best they can, move some things around, maybe get some rockets out of storage areas the Israelis haven't found yet, and present a greater risk to the Israelis. And for the Israelis to give them that 24 hours, I'm a bit surprised. It could be that they want to try and bring them to the table and realize they're not going to get anything more than a ceasefire. And if Hamas doesn't live up to it, then they can, as you said, show them as the perpetrator. But I am puzzled by this.
Bob, the Hamas, if they only get a ceasefire, that's not very good for them. Nobody in the Arab world seems to be caring a lot about what happens to Hamas right now. They are very concerned about Palestinian lives, however. How might this play out? Clearly, this is going to inflame tension in the Middle East. The West wants it to stop. But what can the practical events or the practical effects beyond Gaza be from this?
You know what I worry about? I mean, it's clearly a worry for Israelis, and it's a terrible tragedy both for Israelis and Palestinians, this war. But the effect it's going to have on the jihadists in places like Libya, Syria, and Iraq. I mean, these people are going to look at this and use it as propaganda and saying, look at the West. And we are equated with Israel, whether we like it or not, what they're doing to Palestinians, fellow Muslims, and they're going to use that as justification to carry out violence in various parts of the world. And I would say it's going to inflame the truly radicals wherever they may be, whether it's the United States, Europe, or the Gulf countries. And I think it's going to have a very bad effect. And the longer it goes on, the more likely we're going to see more international terrorism.
Colonel, I take it you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. And just to piggyback on what Bob said, he's absolutely right. We're seeing this already in the Syrian and ISIS. The recruitment is way up, and all of their literature and everything, they're now siding with the Gazans, and even people that were sitting on the fence are now jumping on, because this has so much inflamed not just the jihadists, but the Arab street. No. The vitriol we're seeing in the press.
Well, this is, I mean, Bob, this is the frustration here. It's the loss of human life, the hospitals bombed, the kids on the beach, the home for invalids. I mean, how high a price? And now 42 Israeli soldiers dead, which is a high price for them. How high a price is Israel willing to pay?
Oh, I think Israelis, the way they look at it, their backs are against the wall, and they will crush Gaza if things get bad enough. If it weren't for Iron Dome and these rockets were actually landing on Israeli cities and killing a lot of civilians, you would see the Israelis go in and totally crush Gaza, flatten it. And this is the way they look at the world. They say they have nowhere to go, and they're going to defend themselves. You know, don't even get into the rights and wrongs of this conflict. You have to look at it from the point of view of the Israelis and the Palestinians, and it's very complex, but it affects the rest of the world.
Very, very disturbing. We could be staring at another intifada coming down the line, and something perhaps even wider.
And the Israelis are committed. I mean, they're in now. They have to go.
All right. Thank you, Jeff.